Over the past few years, every so often, there would be a setting that I'd want to create in Paint. The other week, I finally decided to do it. And I also decided it'd be the ideal opportunity to actually record how I paint sometimes. So the first thing I did was sketch it out. Did it very lightly. Now for this, we're gonna need a few supplies. First, there's the paper, the sketch paper, there's the scissors, and obviously the paints. The sketch paper is actually, obviously I have it made somewhat on a piece of sketchbook paper here, but I need a second paper because what I'm going to be doing is basically masking shadow onto the piece, and since I don't have Frisket film or whatever, I just take what I got, and what I got is sketchbooks. I got like probably 100. So I just take a piece of paper out of a sketchbook, cut out the area that I want the shading to be in, take a sponge, dip that into the paint itself, and just start sponging through the area that I want to shade in. Now, I don't sponge every little thing. For some things, I just do flat acrylic color, which, for acrylics, like for watercolor, anything you do pretty much permanently affects the color of the piece, because you're, like, staining the paper. Here, with acrylics are more solid. To make any real difference to the color, aside from what you first put down, it has to be still pretty wet for you to make a difference. Otherwise, with acrylics, it's just going to lay that color over the top. Like here, it's still wet, so it'll make it a lighter shade the more I rub it in. And that can also be dry brushing, where you just let the paint dry a bit and scrape it over the other acrylic to give the effect that it's actually lighter the more towards what you painted it was, or darker depending on what color you choose. For this area here, you'll see it as the painting progresses. There's this light beam that I wanted going through the page, and it's not. I kept going back and forth over whether or not I should keep the light beam in there, because I'd never done one before. All in all, I think it turned out nice, so I kept it in. But that is why this area, I'm painting it lighter than the rest of the area, and that's what you do. You'll see it once we get there, but just giving you a heads up as to why I'm doing it that way. Now on to how we do the cutting. Obviously, you use scissors. Sometimes it'll get caught, like when you're turning those, so at certain times you might want to use a box cutter to get the angles more straight and edged out and, not bad looking. But then you take pieces you've already cut out, if you've cut out in an area that you've used before, tape those back on, because you don't want to go through the whole effort to get a whole new sheet of paper every time to make new shapes out of. And then you just go back to sponging through it. Yeah, lift it up occasionally to see how you're doing on the actual thing. Gives you a nice little update. this piece of rock here, it was very, very odd to do for me. Because this part's like normal, where you do all the wet shading and everything. But that stuff on the right, those rocks, that's going to be... I had planned it out where, like, I would shade the middle part, and then these rocks, they'd be shaded more like how the left part originally was before I added the light effect, to give it more of a consistency, like that's on the same level of lighting, but slightly darker. And then around that, I would add this greenish dark tint, and then I would sponge in a bit lightly, a bit hard over that, like that color, that green right there, and that would sponge over the shapes on the right to give sort of a fading into the darkness effect to them. It should be coming up here in like a second. That turned out to be a pretty nice brownish, grayish color, so I kept it. I think originally it was going to be more green, but I liked how that one turned out right there. Yeah, yeah, I forgot to mention, the camera kept failing, so I guess that's one of the parts that it failed at, where I was actually painting around the orange, but here you can see it shading into the green. And by the time it's finished, it looks pretty nice to me. Yeah, it's starting to look like more... Oh, I guess I kind of completely greened it up there. Had to go... That's sometimes what happens, like it gets too much shading, so then I have to go back over it with what the color originally was, which sometimes adds a nice blend into it. Like, since it's still wet, it does the natural mixing the colors, but on top of that, it does, like, do the splatter shade at the same time. It's pretty helpful sometimes. Other times it can be annoying, but usually it turns out okay. Oh, here we go. Guess it failed again to... Basically, this is what I was talking about with the light beam. You shade, you color all this stuff around it, and then every part of it that goes through the light beam is just a lighter color of what you already put down. Like here I'm doing the background, which I was wondering if I should add more rocks and stuff into it, but at the end I just decided it looked alright as it was. Oh, right. Yeah, I have a light table. My dad made it for me for, I think, when I graduated high school, for me to do animation on, because obviously I like animation, cartooning, and all that crap. But this is how I did the tracing for when I cut out on the paper. Lay it over the sheet of paper when it's on the light table, trace over all the shapes, and then cut it out, sponge through it. You've been seeing that throughout the video, so don't think I need to explain much more there. For the actual rocks themselves in the background, the furthest ones back are obviously gonna be the darkest. For As you get progressively closer, they'll get lighter and lighter looking. Mainly that had to do with the sponging more than anything else, because I'm still laying down the basic colors. But that was why I was wet shading that one rock. It doesn't really matter in the end, because I ended up going over it anyway with sponge. Like, is it gonna be this one? No. This is the one in front of it. Oh, maybe I already sponged that one on the left. Oh, here we go. Part of the light shading thing. Yeah, that's that column in the background. Just make it a lighter version of what it is in the non-light beam area. And then the stuff around it be a lighter version of their respective colors. Yeah, all the darks become slightly less dark, and all the sponges become slightly lightlier colored sponges. Very, very basic thing to explain. That gives a pretty cool effect, I think. Oh, the dragon block. I forgot about this thing. Originally, when I made this, I just had the face block in the center of the page, but I also added this dragon thing because I wanted this to be a background for something, be it an animation or like my Xeno Hunter game. If it's an animation, it'd probably be of my comic stuff where they explore caves sometimes and ruins are all over the world. Or, on the other hand, Xeno Hunter is a game that I want to make about you being a space pirate, where you go exploring through alien caves and all that. Could work it into either thing. The dragon thing be more for Xeno Hunter, because there are these things called progenitor dragons near the dawn of the universe that spread life throughout things, and blah 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 blah. But yeah, that's where the dragon thing comes in. Since it's dragony, it could work for probably any ancient ruins thing to make it look cool, but just figured it'd be a nice little thing to put in if it was Xeno Hunter. But we should be getting towards the end of this video. It is pretty neat to see all of this stuff done in super fast motion. Like, I've always wanted to do videos like this where it show how I make things, but whenever I've tried to do it digitally, there's always been a lot of problems with the equipment I'd use. It'd completely slow down things that I'm drawing on the computer. For this, I had to take a digital camera, tape it to a candle jar, angle it down, and just click record while I do all this. It took a long time. Like, there's 40 minutes of footage I had to go through for this, but it's pretty neat seeing it all come together. So I guess this just about does it. Hope you've enjoyed this video and gotten some insight onto how to do this, or at least how I've done it. So see you next time. A quick little zoom in, and here's the finished product.